All right, Wall fans, all right, common sensors, and all right, especially Go Tell to the Brewery fans. That's right, it's me, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, coming at you with yet another Go Tell to the Brewery beer review. Now, for this particular edition, I have one main beer that we're going to talk about, but I have an additional beer here, and I just want to get into that and kind of give a little background here. And this particular brewery that we're talking about for this edition is Anchor Steam Brewing out of San Francisco, California. And I bring up this beer first because this was actually their first beer that they brewed back in the 70s. Anchor Steam out of San Francisco. They've been around since the 70s. They've been around for quite a while when you're talking in relation to kind of craft brewers and smaller breweries and everything else. And the reason I bring this one up is because I learned something today, something that was really interesting. I try not to geek out too much on the beers and stuff. You know, as you know, if you're a Go Tell to the Brewery fan, Go Tell to the Wall fan, we don't mess around. It's kind of the basics. You know, we keep it just top end. You know, this tastes good, this tastes like this is that, whatever it is. However, I did get some interesting information as I was doing a little bit of research today on Anchor Steam Brewing. Now, the way they got their name is what I found interesting. Apparently back in the 19th century, this would be the 1800s, in America, most of the beer brewing that was taking place in America was happening on the East Coast. They didn't really have beer brewing happening on the West Coast, what is now California and all of the West Coast. So at that time, anything that was brewed on the West Coast of the U.S., of this really what it was at that time, 19th century, was referred to as steam beer. Steam beer. And the reason is that there wasn't as much ice and refrigeration out on the West Coast. So a lot of the beer was made through a different process than what they were doing on the East Coast, using ice and all this other stuff. So any beer that was coming out of the West Coast at that time was referred to as steam or steam beer. I found that really interesting. And what Anchor Steam did was they ran with that and used it as the signature for their brewery. And this particular brew, the Anchor Steam, is the first beer that they put out as a brewery back in the 70s. And this is kind of their signature. If you've ever had an Anchor Steam, you've most likely had this one. This is their most common one. That's kind of the one you're going to see most places. They brew it all year long, so it's a little easier to find than some of their seasonal ones. What I do want to get into, because you've all had this, we've all had this. If you're any kind of beer drinker, especially in California, you've had the Anchor Steam. I've had plenty of them. The one that I haven't had a ton of is the Anchor Steam Coffee Porter. Coffee Porter. A couple things about this one. It is definitely a coffee porter, but I actually have a friend over, cracked this open, and I wanted him to try it as well. He's a big beer drinker. And one thing he brought up to me that I completely agreed with was, compared to most stouts, coffee porters, and everything else, this one's a little crisper. It's definitely a little crisper in comparison to a lot of those other ones. And once he said that, I completely agreed. I've drank my fair share of stouts and porters and everything else, especially when you're out at the pub. That's the way you got to do it. Now, with this one, out of Anchor Steam, it's extra interesting because not only is it a little crisper, but what Anchor Steam has done is they took their signature porter, they have an Anchor Porter, and they simply took that existing porter and combined it with coffee from a local coffee maker in San Francisco called 4 Barrel. 4 Barrel Coffee out of San Francisco. They took chilled, cold brewed coffee and did a flash chilling process, I guess because they're not freezing it, but chilling it for 10 seconds, mixing this with their signature porter and coming out with the coffee porter. Now, I don't know if that's what makes it a little crisper, but I can tell you it's definitely crisper than a lot of the porters you're going to find. It's running around where any porter would, 6.7%. So it's right in that realm of what most porters and most stouts are going to be, so don't worry about that. It's not like the Russian Imperial stouts where you're getting a little higher, like 8%. This one's sitting like 6.7. So I do recommend it if you're a porter fan. If you're a coffee fan at all, this one, it's going to kind of hit all the things you like, especially if you're a porter fan, if you're an Anchor Steam fan, and if you're a coffee fan. Kind of hits all those. You're not getting a lot of chocolatiness on this one. I've had a lot of coffee porters or stouts where you get a little chocolate taste. Not so much on this one. But I would recommend it, especially if you're in California. Got to support the California breweries. Anchor Steam been around since the 70s out of San Francisco, California. So check them out. Check them out. And remember, Wall fans, no matter where you're drinking, no matter who you're drinking with, no matter what it is you're drinking, and it's always, especially no matter why it is you're drinking, always drink with common sense.